What Munger and Buffett are both extremely good at is they're incredible judges of humans. That went up like something like 80x after he told me that. Okay, I just watched it like go crazy. Okay, so he had no money, and on the float of the student loans, which is, he would get the money in, January, maybe he has to pay it in April or something. He said he would invest the float of the student loans, and when he graduated, he had $1 million.
What are 6 new insights Mohnish Pabrai reveals about Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand man? Well, in this video, you guys are going to find out. I'm Ben, and welcome to Motivation to Invest. So firstly, who is Mohnish Pabrai? Well, Mohnish Pabrai is a legendary value investor, often referred to as the next Warren Buffett or the Indian Warren Buffett. He first came into contact with Warren Buffett after winning a charity auction for a meal with the Oracle of Omaha. From that charity meal, Warren Buffett actually recommended that he go and have another meal with Charlie Munger, the legendary value investor. And since then, Mohnish Pabrai has become great friends with Charlie Munger. Munger even calls upon Pabrai when he needs an extra bridge player when he's playing bridge at the LA Country Club. So in this post, I'm actually going to reveal 6 key insights Mohnish Pabrai has recently revealed about the great investor, Charlie Munger. Now, the full podcast is around 2 hours long on the Investors Podcast Network, so I highly recommend you checking that out. And with that being said, let's dive in. So takeaway number 1 is Charlie Munger is a voracious learning machine.
On both sides of him are high tables. And there's a lot of, high-powered lights behind him because his eyesight is not that great. But the best analogy I have is that there's a big stack of books on one side and other reading materials and Barron's and, Value Line, whatnot. And there's a big stack of books on the other side. And Charlie is like an assembly line, devouring. I mean, there's an engine of these things running through from the unread pile to the read pile. And I would estimate that he's reading more than 500 books a year. I think it's more than one a day. Now, he doesn't read the way we read. He's skimming a lot. And he's especially skimming a lot when, he's not, he finds the author rambling or whatever, and so he's trying to get the nuggets he wants. And they are in such a wide range. And, usually sometimes I'd go in on a Saturday evening or something to have dinner with him. And he'd be reading something about, global warming, some book on global warming. Subjects would be all over the place. Sometimes I'd go in and he'd be designing the dorms, right? And then he'd be stuck on some subject and he'd say, what's the height of a pickup truck? And I'm like saying, well, let's go ask God Google. I don't know that, because he was trying to figure out, how high the parking lot should be and all this kind of stuff. So I'd get all these kind of, weird questions from him.
Now, Charlie Munger has stated in the past, to be successful in life, it's best to be a continuous learning machine. And it's clear he actually walks his talk. Despite being 98 years old, Charlie Munger is still a voracious learning machine. Key insight number 2 is colourful language. According to Mohnish, Charlie Munger actually swears quite a lot when speaking.
Dinner with Charlie is always very entertaining. I mean, it's very educational, but it's very entertaining. One of the things that happened the first time I met him for lunch was as he was talking, I heard the F word. And I'm thinking in my head, did God just utter the F word? And as I'm, processing that in my head, I hear another F word. Okay. And there were a number of F words during that meal. And then I realized after that every time I met God, the F word just flowed freely. And I'm actually surprised that at the Berkshire meeting or the Daily Journal meeting, there's no F words, because it's so natural the way he speaks.
Okay, now takeaway number 3 is the differences between Warren Buffett's investing style and Charlie Munger's. Now, according to Pabrai, Charlie Munger and Buffett have many similarities in their investing style, but they also have some areas of divergence.
Charlie got to understanding the importance of better businesses. Better to buy a good business at a fair price and a fair business at a good price. I think he got that understanding well before Warren. And I think it took Warren more time just because I think he's been so successful in the traditional Gramian approach. I mean, they're both cheapskates, and they're both not willing to pay up. But one of the areas, for example, where they diverged was Costco, right? And Charlie tried to have Berkshire take a much larger position in Costco, and Warren's perspective was it's too expensive, right? And Charlie would always say, well, for some things you pay up.
Another area of divergence is the Chinese electric vehicle maker BYD, of which Berkshire Hathaway purchased a $232 million stake in the company for a 10% share holding in 2008.
BYD, Charlie told Warren that Chung Fu Wang is like Thomas Edison, and you should invest with him. And Warren just kind of ignored that. And then he said, well, he's like Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, both in the same person. And Warren still ignored that. And then Charlie told him he's like Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Bill Gates, all in the same person. And at that point, what Charlie said to me is he went ahead after I made the third comment, putting three people in one person.
Now, according to a 2009 story by Fortune, Munger was inspired by BYD's founder, Wang Xiaofu, a chemist turned entrepreneur. In reference, Munger actually stated, the guy is a combination of Thomas Edison and Jack Welch, something like Edison in solving technical problems and something like Welch in getting done what needs to be done. Now, Munger actually stated it was a real challenge convincing Buffett to invest into BYD.
But he didn't use his own money. So what he did was, it's kind of like these people, like kids running a lemonade stand, the way they talk about it. He said he didn't use his own money. He went to David Sokol and had Mid-American Energy use their money to buy the stake in BYD. And so the $250 million that Berkshire Hathaway invested in BYD came from Mid-American, which I think at that time Berkshire owned 80% of, right? And then he put David Sokol on the board.
I'm pretty sure Buffett is happy with the BYD investment today, as it's now worth approximately $5.6 billion from the $232 million stake. And according to Pabrai, he states they purchased it for 8 Hong Kong dollars per share, and it's now worth over 260 Hong Kong dollars per share. So incredible investment, and in Monish's words, a home run. Okay, takeaway number 4 is Charlie Munger and Li Lu of Himalaya Capital Management. Li Lu is highly regarded by Charlie Munger, and apparently that's where the investment ideas for Alibaba and also BYD came from.
It's not actually a triple major, it's 3 degrees. It's a MBA, it's a law degree, and it's an undergraduate degree, all at the same time. I mean, these are the complete. It's not like a bachelor's degree with 3 majors. This is well beyond that. In a language that's a foreign language to him, right? And he did really well in all of them. But when I asked Charlie the question, he said, "Well, it was a complete no-brainer." And he said, "I just had to look at the track record." So he said, "Here was a guy who was on student loans. He had no money, and on the float of the student loans, which is." He would get the money in, January, maybe he has to pay it in April or something. He said he would invest the float of the student loans. And when he graduated, he had $1 million. Okay. So when Li Lu finished at Columbia with Columbia's loan money, with the stuff he was doing, and then after that, he went into venture capital, and he had an incredible record. One of his early investments is a company now that we know as Capital IQ. And actually a lot of what is Capital IQ, a lot of influence from Li Lu. And Capital IQ basically is the closest thing you can get to Bloomberg. It's a really incredible product. I mean, like, we have a subscription, we pay them an arm and a leg, and we can't get around it. So So he's been an incredible investor, and I think what Charlie said was it was one of the easiest decisions to figure out that Lilu was amazing. He said that his track record was incredible.
Now, Pabrai actually states that Munger stated to him, in investing, it's really important to have somebody to talk to, and that shouldn't be someone who reports to you directly, but more like a peer. And Munger basically instructed Pabrai and Lilu to meet for lunch once a month, and they spoke about a few different stocks. One was called Amorepacific, which was a South Korean cosmetics company, and that apparently went up by 80x. So it's clear Lilu knows a lot about what he's talking about.
Lilu told me during one of these lunches, he said, you should look at and maybe you should buy Amorepacific. Okay. And I said, Amore what? He said, Amorepacific. Okay. He said, it's a Korean company. Okay. And I said, okay. And, I went back and I looked at this and everything's in Korean. Excuse my French. Everything's in Korean. Okay. And I figure out it's a cosmetics company. And then I also figure out that there's some of their products you can actually find in Southern California. But I could never really figure the business out. Okay. And I really couldn't really get my arms around it in terms of like what was the secret sauce here or whatever. So I eventually just, left it alone. And that went up like something like 80x after he told me that. Okay. I just watched it like go crazy. Okay. And they had this product which, they extract from snails, which women would apply on their faces, and it would make them younger, make them look younger. The wrinkles kind of go away or whatever. And what Amorepacific had been able to do, what they had been able to convince Chinese women that, and I think now Korea is very well known for being kind of the state of the art for Asian women's skin products and so on. And they had a massive tailwind from Chinese women clamoring for their products, and they've done really well.
So it's clear Lilu knows a lot about what he's talking about. And Mohnish Pabrai and Lilu have recently collaborated on Micron stock, ticker symbol MU, which is now the largest US holding of Pabrai's fund with a 99% stake of his entire US portfolio. I did cover this stock in full when Mohnish first purchased it. I covered a full valuation very recently also, so I'll leave a link to that video somewhere on this video and also in the description below. Okay, so key insight number 5 is Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett are both incredible judges of humans.
What Munger and Buffett are both extremely good at is they're incredible judges of humans.
Now, they are referring to their ability to spot great CEOs, great founders, and also great fellow investors like the aforementioned Lilu. And finally, takeaway number 6 is Charlie Munger can apparently analyze a business in 5 to 10 seconds.
What I've found with Charlie is sometimes I bring up businesses to him that I'm looking at. He may never have looked at the business. And he's able to, in about 5 or 10 seconds, I mean, I've seen the brain working. It's kind of amazing how it just slices through all the models. And he's done with the business in about 10 seconds. And I've been, looking at it for weeks.
Now, Pabrai gives a deep example about a credit company which he researched, which was then shot down by Munger. So it's clear Charlie Munger, despite being 98 years old, is an exceptional individual. And if you guys do want more investing tips and wisdom such as this, feel free to join the family by hitting that subscribe button, turning that notification bell on. If you did find value in this video at all, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, helps out tremendously with the channel. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have an incredible day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Keep growing.